Well, good afternoon, everybody, and I tell you what, you couldn't get better weather for it. We are here at Hungaroring, round 3 of the International GTOpen Championship. We've had one race, just one more to go this weekend. Different conditions, though, because it's 60 minutes as opposed to 70, with the driver change window opening from the 24th to the 36th minute into the race. 4.381 kilometers lie in way to the drivers. That, of course, leading up 2.722 miles. A packed crowd here, certainly here in the International GTOpen. The grandstands are certainly filling up. The paddock itself has been hustling and bustling, as well as the grid slots as well. Plenty of cars now making their way out onto the circuit, and we've got a tantalising start coming your way, folks. Christopher Haase, after that stellar performance in qualifying, landing absolutely massive pole position, and obviously that will go a long way to their charge. And obviously looking forward to the end of the, towards deeper into the race, they will be tussling with the likes of Charlie Fagg, who line up alongside them. Of course, off the back of what has been a stellar championship fight, we have now got Alfaisal Zubair and Fabian Schiller, who've come off the back of yesterday's race now with 2 wins in their locker across the season. Same can be said for Marco Polcini and Eddie Cheever at Pro-Am, and also Heiko Neumann and Timo Rumpfkeil, who also pick up a second Am victory as well in class. There you can see as well the team combination of Charlie Fagg as well as Sam Dehan. They're going to be looking to try and challenge down through towards turn 1, ever so important. My name, folks, is George Morgan. Alongside me, it's Chris Stevens. Chris, I'm buzzing. I'm buzzing for this one.
Absolutely, me too. And the fans have been buzzing as well. You saw pictures of the pit lane. They've just been enjoying a nice paddock and pit lane tour. Great access here in the GTOpen. And great to get the fans right up close to the machines that are about to do battle for the next 60 minutes. And yeah, Christopher Haase, as you mentioned, absolutely smashing the lap record by some half a second in qualifying this morning. Charlie Fagg starting alongside him, then this man Fabian Schiller, who won yesterday with a brilliant race-winning move on Pierre-Louis Chauvet in the latter stages of the race. But they have an additional 5 seconds of a handicap penalty to take in their pit stop, so 20 seconds in total. That's going to be quite tough for them to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. David Fuminelli qualifying 4th. Obviously, yesterday it was the task of Frederick Yusey to lead qualifying for race 1. Came a little unstuck in that one, but David Fuminelli bringing them back up to the sharp end and managing to hustle and bustle his way up to the top 4, leading the Pro-Am class as well.
And very happy with the performance of their new Ferrari 296, which is debuting this weekend. We've had the Racing 1 team running a 296 since the start of the season. Kessel Racing has brought 2 of them for this weekend and the remainder of the season as well. We expect to see more of that brand new Ferrari later in the season, especially from the likes of AF Corsa as well. This man Yannick Mettler, another man who was very rapid in qualifying, 5th overall and 2nd of the Pro-Am contingent. He'll hand over to Dexter Muller in the second half of this race.
Yeah, don't bleeding.
Yeah, we've got Oregon as well. We're setting sights, certainly. The Pirate team are looking to try and get back to winning ways. And certainly off the back of what has been a sensational race yesterday, Pierre-Louis Chauvet had to put up a stern defence while leading right to the bitter end. Unfortunately, could not keep the ever-prosaic Fabian Schiller from overtaking him in the dying minutes of yesterday's race. Of course, 70-minute conditions in that one. And it was also part of that Diego Menchaca display as well. Of course, when Marcus Seibert put the initial stint in for Motor Park, they, of course, also becoming unstuck. Team Exler, Luca Exler himself driving the car for this initial stint, but he's got a new driver alongside him, that of being Mokoena, who's actually in the seat alongside him. Of course, then further back there is the Team Motorpark Mercedes as well, that lines up there in behind, and Diego Menchaca will be hoping for a better run this time as opposed to what happened yesterday.
Yes, this car very much in the championship fight, and unfortunately an incident for Diego Menchaca late in the race yesterday, where he spun at turn 3, squabbling for the lead, plus an additional 18 seconds worth of time penalty because they didn't serve the handicap correctly during their pit stop. So they need to keep a clean run, especially with their 2 title rivals starting on the front row of the grid.
Yeah, absolutely right indeed. Recovery mission on hand, certainly for them, but naturally we have got some penalties throughout some of the grid as well. Obviously the success penalties coming into the fray, and naturally quite a sparse group of them too, so we'll have to see how they cope with that.
And I think what's important here is the second place car, Charlie Fagg and Sam Dehan, the Optimum Motorsport McLaren, is handicapless, essentially. They only have to take the basic minimum pit stop time of 65 seconds. And in this weekend, where it's kind of been damage limitation for them, because they've said this car isn't really suited to this track, and they were happy with 4th yesterday. That was their target. They achieved that. Charlie Fagg put it on the front row this morning. He doesn't have any handicaps to take in the pit stop. That could well be a car to watch in the latter stages of this race.
Yeah, Riccardo Agostini putting together a very good run in qualifying as well. Of course, partnering that of Nicola Marinangeli, who will swap in as well when the driver change window comes inwards. Obviously, they're ahead of Luca Engstler in terms of the current grid formation. Going back to the Team Motorpark car, they also are without a success penalty coming into this race. So a perfect opportunity for them to bounce back, but certainly given the fact that Charlie Fagg is on the front row, that will give him that initial benefit at the very start. There's Milos Pavlovic, of course, representing out of the Benaldi Motorsport team. The sister car doing so well in qualifying yesterday, managing to take that initial pole at the hands of Martin Kodrick. This time, this Benaldi car, all dressed in yellow, is the highest one in the order.
And that car was in the wars somewhat yesterday, involved in a number of incidents, so they'll be hoping for a cleaner run. This is Richard Lietz in the sole Porsche on the grid, which is entered by the Line Speed GP team, operated by Herbeth Motorsport. And Richard Lietz, I would say, out of position on the grid, down in 12th. We normally expect a driver of Richard Lietz's caliber, of course, a Porsche works driver for many, many years, and has won everything that you can in terms of endurance racing, should really be higher up on the grid. So clearly some problems they're still working out on that car.
Yeah, of course, lining up with Conrad Grunwald, who had an impressive run in qualifying. Just in behind Giuseppe Cipriani, there was a moment where it looked like the times were going to swap, but certainly now Cipriani, the fastest man on track, obviously a two-time AM champion as well, back in 2019 and 2021. There's Giorgio Giotto, who is currently out on track as well. Obviously had a very busy time of it yesterday, as he's now looking to get set for yet another run. We'll have to see how he copes in these conditions. Obviously currently in the midfield fight, 3rd in the AM classification as well. So we're going to bring you highlights from yesterday's race, and it was indeed Martin Kodrick who got off to a very quick start to the inside. Carol Bash looked to have his number, but after being covered off, it did open the door, certainly, for them. But certainly the Oregon cars were trying their best to work their way up the field. There was the contact between the Lion Speed, Reece Barr as well in the Mercedes, also coming together with it. This was a massive moment as well. Frederick Yusey being part of this. There's the Benaldi car we were referring to earlier on as well. Then, of course, the driver change window came in, and Martin Kodrick would be swapped out of the car, and then in would come Lewandowski in his place. I have to say, Fabian Schiller, an absolutely stellar display alongside that of Al-Faisal Al-Zubair. Of course, the Almana Racing Get Speed team was certainly enjoying this race. I tell you who didn't, though, was Diego Menchaca and Marcos Siber. Menchaca spinning on the outset of turn 3. But it would be Fabian Schiller as well as Al-Faisal Al-Zubair who would take the victory yesterday, making it 2 overall wins throughout the season, and certainly a successful running indeed as we head now through the championship. And this is what it's done to the championship race. Of course, we've got a long way to go before the end, but Charlie Fagg and Samuel Dehaan still hold the advantage. 4 points now in front of Christopher Haasler and Simon Riker, who are bidding to make the most of what will be a sensational run from the very front up to taking pole. Diego Menchaca and Marcos Siber lining up in 3rd. Altogether, a tantalising display, tantalising field heading in towards the mid-part of the season.
Absolutely. We're looking at that top 3 in the championship, the 2 cars on the front row there, and the 10th place car, the Team Motorpark number 17. Why aren't we talking about the number 77 Almanar Racing? We just saw it was 16 points behind the championship leader. It is only doing 3 rounds this season. This is the 2nd outing for that car. We won't see them again until the finale in Barcelona, and that's why we're not talking about them as championship contenders. But they have been incredibly fast on the outings that we've seen, and you would expect nothing less when you see the combination of a Mercedes AMG works driver in the form of Fabian Schiller alongside a driver such as Al-Faisal Al-Zubair, the 25-year-old Omani racer who's been done a lot of success. as we get underway for race number 2. The formation lap is underway, and yes, Alzubair, a driver with lots of experience in the likes of Porsche, Super Cup, Carrera Cup as well, won championships over there, and of course was a GTOpen race winner in 2021 as well. Vali, George, go through the grid.
Yeah, here is the grid for race 2 here this weekend. Christopher Haase on pole position after a stellar lap in qualifying. Charlie Fagg lines up alongside him in the Optimum Motorsport McLaren. Fabian Schiller in the Mercedes in 3rd place, with David Fuminelli in 4th as well. P5 going to that of Yannick Mettler after a great display. Pro-Am 2nd. Ricardo Agostini in the Pro class in 6th. 7th going to Luca Engstler and Team Engstler Audi R8, with 8th going to Pierre-Louis Chauvet and the Lamborghini Huracan GT3. Mikael Pitamba lines up in the Merc as well in 9th, alongside that of Diego Menchaca, fellow Merc, in 10th only for Motorpark. Milos Pavlovic in 11th for Benaldi Lamborghini, with 12th going to Ricard Lietz for the 992 Porsche Lion Speed. Giuseppe Cipriani in 13th, alongside that of Konrad Grunwald in 14th as well. Giorgio Synergiotto in 15th, alongside that of Christian Korzanowski, who looked to have a promising display in qualifying, just didn't work out towards the end. Pietro Pirolini with quite a lot to do, alongside that of Steve Jans, who faces up with him on 18th spot. Heiko Neumann, as part of the other Motorpark car in the AM class, lines up alongside that of 20th place Marco Polcini. Andrei Lewandowski in 21st place, with Marcin Jedlinski in 22nd. 23rd goes to that of Adam Osaka, and that of Kiki Santana will be swapping in for him later on. Nicolo Rossi lines up on 24th place. Libor Milota in 25th for Mirage Motorsport, with Stefan Aust in the Racing One alongside him. Pascal Bachmann and Street Art start 27th, with Stuart Proctor making up the father-son contingent in 28th place, as well as 29th going to Ernst Kirkmeyer in 29th as part of Baron Motorsport. Gino Forgione in 30th as well. 31st place to Omar Jackson, making up the other Racing One entrant, and we'll see how he gets on as they make their way from the back of the grid. But getting set now in the formation lap as they look to get the tyres up to temperature. Highly important to get off to a good start here, Chris.
It certainly is. We've got the top 2 in the championship starting next to each other on the front row of the grid. It's a mouth-watering prospect, and as I said at Spa, this is why we love GT racing. It's going to be, I think, a bit of a dogfight between Charlie Fagg and Christopher Haase. Don't discount Fabian Schiller as well. We've got some Pro-Am runners that will throw themselves into the mix in the early stages of this race as well.
Yeah, they're going to be very wary about the start. I tell you what, mouth-watering prospect. Remember, these 2 front runners were together at Spa in the endurance race. The battle to the end. On that occasion, it was Optimum who came out on top. But I tell you what, an exit out of the final corner proving to be useful for Christopher Haase as we put pedal to the metal and we hit go, 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 go. And I tell you what, Fabian Schiller might have responded the better as well. Makes his way now behind the rear of the Optimum car. Look at Luca Engstler as well down the inside as well, as he looks to prosaically rise up through the order. Fabian Schiller going deep against Charlie Fagg. He's up to 2nd now. Incredible from Schiller. Responded brilliantly to the getaway. Charlie Fagg just simply too slow away.
I think Charlie Fagg was caught napping a little bit there on the exit of the last corner before the lights went out. Christopher Haase put his foot down and Fabian Schiller went right with him. For a moment it looked like the straight line performance of that McLaren from the 4-litre twin-turbo V8 might have just kept him ahead, but Fabian Schiller with a brilliant move around the outside of the first corner, gets himself up into 2nd place and is already in the wheel tracks of the race leader, Christopher Haase.
Yeah, Christopher Haase, instant revenge from Spa. Obviously, when they came toe-to-toe towards the end, it would be the Optimum Motorsport on top on that occasion, but Haase responding immediately. At the get-go, just got the better jump. He was prepared. He put the throttle down. Charlie Fagg just missed the point. Could not quite land anything now, as David Fuminelli still remains in 4th place. Agostini in 5th as well. Yannick Mettler remains in 6th. Luca Engstler looked to have a great start, and in fact did challenge out of Pierre-Louis Chauvet as they made their way around turn 1. Engstler doing enough.
Yes, so Agostini there has picked up a place from Yannick Mettler. He's up into 5th place there, so dispatched of one of the Pro-Am runners already. He's got the Pro-Am leader ahead of him. That was David Fuminelli, who we were just on board with. This is on board with Ricard Lietz in the Lion Speed Porsche, down in 11th place. And we hear the engine notes of that flat 6 engine. Absolutely lovely to hear, but they come across the line for the first time. That Team Engstler Audi running a little wide there on the exit of the final corner. Is that going to give Pierre-Louis Chauvet a bit of momentum down the front straight to try and make a move on him into turn 1? didn't look like it was. He's actually coming under pressure from Manchaka, who's also picked up a spot. He's into 9th place, but still well behind his 2 nearest title rivals.
Yeah, they had a very, very difficult run yesterday. We alluded to that final 3-car scrap that eventually led to Fabian Schiller bringing the car home on top for the Almanar Racing Get Speed Mercedes, as they now peel through the first sector now, heading out of turn 3 and then making the climb up through towards turn 4. There is the Benaldi Lamborghini as well. Not necessarily the fastest Benaldi Lamborghini in last race, yesterday's race, but has quickly shown under the hands of Milos Pavlovic to have the pace. But he might have made a little mistake here out of turn 4, which could open the door for Ricard Lietz, who did have a little look around the outside in the line speed. They themselves also trying to find something a little more themselves, as we ride on board now with Yannick Mettler as he gives chase, obviously, to Riccardo Agostini, who currently sits ahead. You can just see the dust there being kicked up there. Some of the cars venturing onto that grass. We've seen it a couple of times already, and that can very easily open the door to your competitors behind or ahead of you.
Yeah, very difficult to make a move in this part of the circuit, but it will definitely slow you up and leave you vulnerable, potentially down this short bit of straight here into the right-hander of turn 12. It's not the most unusual move we've seen, as Giuseppe Cipriani there getting very wide out of turn 11. That car down in 2nd place in the AM category, so he's lost out to Conrad Grunwald, who is the championship leader in that category going into this weekend. And of course, they've got a big battle going on with the sister team Motorpark car in the AM category as well. But this is Engsler looking at the back of Yannick Mettler there. Luca Engsler, another car that is doing a part-season campaign. We saw him at the opening round in Portimao with Dylan Yip. This time he's got Juanda Makina sharing the Audi R8 with him.
Yeah, it certainly does indeed. Just to say as well, Giorgio Synergiotto getting the move on Pietro Pirolini as well. But this is the replay from the start, and it was a very pacey getaway from our front runner. Now, this is a perfect view. You can see there Haase getting himself clear immediately, and you can just see there Charlie Fagg trying to negate the incoming storm. That was Almanar Racing's Mercedes, obviously being driven by that of Fabian Schiller, but he had his number straight away around turn 1, had the better line as well. A little bit lax, I think, on the throttle heading out of turn 1 as well, but I think he had to be very careful about spinning the tyres. You can just see them there getting oh so close, and you can see a full view of that Almanar Racing Mercedes managing to work its way through and surpassing the Optimum Motorsport McLaren, making its way up into 2nd. And here is the view from Yannick Mettler.
Supreme move from Schiller. So this was the view from Yannick Mettler. He's about to get done by Riccardo Agostini here, I think on the outside. Yep, there is the number 51 AF Corsa Ferrari. So a very similar move to Schiller, the outside line proving favourable at the start of this race. And a little bit of dramas down at the chicane, as that's the Olin Ferrari getting very close to Giuseppe Cipriani. And the number 19 Oregon car getting squeezed out a little wide there.
Yeah, that was the moment between Synergiotto and Pietro Pirolini. And of course, I spoke to Pirolini earlier on, caught up with him in the paddock. This is his first visit to Hungaroring. He's never raced here before.
Yeah.
So obviously, this is a huge challenge for anybody. It doesn't matter how good you are behind the wheel, but when it comes to on-track management, obviously it's another matter altogether. Of course, you can have the tools at your disposal. How you use them is another factor.
And he only had 8 laps in Friday practice because the car didn't run in FP2 with a mechanical issue. So he's coming to this weekend, I would say, not with the preparation he was hoping or expecting that to have, but doing a very good job at the moment. 17th at the moment, but I'm sure that car will make forward progress. As Engsler here, still really looking for a way past Yannick Mettler in that Team Engsler Audi.
Yeah, he had a fantastic start as well. Engsler was so aggressive. He switched from the inside. I saw him at the very beginning, and I thought, well, he could have 2 or 3 at this point, but didn't quite manage to pull it off. But nevertheless, showing extremely good form at this point. Pierre-Louis Chauvert also looking pretty strong too. He's obviously keeping Diego Menchaca in behind. Synergiotto has actually managed to make another place. He's managed to get past that of Giuseppe Cipriani, and is now trying to close up on Christian Kozanowski. I think we might have had a moment as well. Heiko Neumann is spilling down the field. Now we might see very shortly, maybe some flags very shortly, but he's lost places. Lewis Proctor, incidentally, going ahead of him too. Car number 25 also under investigation for overtaking car 19.
Yeah, so the Motorpark incident there, I think we just had a yellow flag out at turn 2 very, very briefly. This might be, we're about to see who it is. So it's the 911 Mercedes getting caught up here. Yes. No, that's Menchaca in the Pro Motorpark car. So another absolute disaster for that car.
No, that's that one was Heiko Neumann. Further back, I think Menchaca is still up there, chasing after Pierre-Louis Chauvet. The car further down, I think, was the...
Yes, sorry, you're right.
Was the car of Adamo Seika, who was trying to work his way forward as well. Steve Jans further up too, but a big moment nonetheless. It's a packed field heading through Sector 1, so unfortunately there he's going to have to try and regather himself, get himself back under contention, get the rubber back under the tyres and hope for the best here at this point now, as we see the front runners make their way down through towards the next left, heading out of turn 2. As the Liquid Moni Team Exeter car, as I said, had a great start, looks so strong, still chasing, giving chase after Yannick Mettler as they now climb. What I will like to allude to as well, just quickly, Synergy Otto under investigation for that move on Pietro Pirolini earlier on, for that forcible move. We could yet see another penalty.
Yep, could well do. Engster, turn 2, got the back end of that Audi twitching a little bit there, still trying to chase after Yannick Mettler, who hasn't given up the chase on Agostini either, in fairness.
It was actually Steve Jans, that was the car that came into contact with that of Heiko Neumann. So that is being investigated as well.
Yes, definitely, yes. The 65 being the AM-entered Motorpark car. It is definitely fighting for the championship in its class. On board here with Yannick Mettler. And we get to listen to that V8 rumble of the Mercedes for a little bit. It's another big draw of GT3 racing. It's the symphony orchestra of various different engine formats and notes that you get to enjoy, not just from on board, but of course, if you're in the stands watching as well.
Neo Santa Maria already very busy at the very start of this. Warning flag given to car 55 as well for cutting the chicane. So not ideal at all, and naturally that's going to put things under a little bit of a strain. And of course, being Laurent de Meus and Jamie Stanley's AF Corsa, so naturally they have been penalised, or at least been warned, at least at this stage, given the fact that track limits is being very closely monitored by our stewarding team and the race director itself as well. Christopher Haase, though, still trying to check out. Riccardo Agostini, incidentally, though, purple in that third sector, so looking almightily strong at this stage, but it is still a top 3 pro contingent. Schiller in second, still ahead of Charlie Fag, but Fag keeping him honest, he's within 8/10.
Certainly is. So interesting, Schiller's not quite chasing after Haase as much as we thought he would, or certainly the pace that they had yesterday would suggest. But you know, it's 2 works drivers from 2 different manufacturers fighting up at the front here, and we've got 5 different manufacturers in the top 5 at the moment as well. The last time around, Fabian Schiller was a couple of tenths quicker, but the gap holding at 2.6 seconds for the moment. And don't forget, that car has got to take 20 seconds of additional handicap during the pit stop, whereas Christopher Haase and Simon Riker in the lead of this race only have to take 10 in their pit stop. But the third place car is completely unrestricted in terms of its additional handicap.
Yeah, absolutely. Purple first sector again though for Haase, as he now looks to try and draw himself clear again. He's right on board here with Ricard Lietz, who now looks to make his way around in the Lion Speed Porsche. They've had a very difficult weekend. Obviously, it's been a very helter-skelter start to the season for them as well, but looking to try and ingrain some form, certainly in this very early stage. Of course, the next round we have in the International GT Open is a trip to the south coast of France when we head to Paul Ricard, and that will be the halfway point in the championship. So all these points mean everything, and naturally, given the fact we've got an overall championship fight that's in amongst multiple manufacturers, multiple teams, it certainly does throw a tantalising affair on hand before we even reach Barcelona. So stay tuned, folks, you don't want to miss a thing. David Fuminelli in 4th, leading the Pro-Am class, 1.3 seconds behind that of Charlie Fag, but crucially enough, 1.2 ahead of Riccardo Agostini.
On board with David Fuminelli, I was talking to how different that new 296 is compared to the old 488 that Fuminelli was rather king in, and seems to be the same for the 296 already in his first outing in it. But it's slightly less torque compared to the 488, but a lot more traction, which is going to serve him very well in a circuit like this. But the real difference really is where you can feel the aerodynamic downforce in the high-speed corners. 20% more aerodynamic downforce in that 296 compared to the old 488.
absolutely right. As we now see David Fuminelli make his way through this next right-hander. Charlie Fagg ahead of him too. There we see there Agostini as well, right in behind him, with Mettler then giving chase. But of course he's had to deal with Luca Exler in behind as well. Fastest lap, of course, attributed to Christopher Haase as well, but fastest second sector going to Schiller, who is now looking to perhaps put the squeeze now on our race leader as they now peel through the final corner at turn 14. And there is the one, the only Agostini, of course, be swapping out for Nicola Marinangeli, who raced in the Euro Formula Open last season and was representing the Van Amersfoort team, who certainly started with him as a driver at the very beginning and has since moved across away from single-seaters, now situating himself within the GT3 classes.
Agostini only 3/4 of a second away from David Fuminelli, the Pro-Am leader for what is 4th place overall. But here is our race leader, Christopher Haase, on board that number 23 East Talent Racing Audi R8 LMS Evo 2, I think it is the full name. It's quite a mouthful. Yeah, Audi once again at the head of a GT race. It's a shame that rumours are that they're going to be pulling the programme at the end of this year, because clearly they are still very rapid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think obviously we spoke to Karel Bash earlier on, and of course he does favour the Audi R8 himself as part of the Olymp Racing conglomerate. Of course they started with the Mercedes-AMG GT3 this season. Of course had so much success last season as well with the Audi taking the Pro-Am title that year as well, winning multiple Pro-Am races, and really took it all the way as well after a tricky display when they went racing at Monza, crashing the car, coming back though to claim the title when we went racing in Barcelona in the final weekend of the championship. But back again now in the Audi, hoping that they can let fly at yet another title charge. It's a little bit more tricky though. They've got some very capable teams in amongst them, including the likes of Eddie Cheever and Marco Pulcini, who registered their second Pro-Am victory in yesterday's race.
So last time round, Christopher Haase did the fastest lap of the race and the fastest first sector on this lap to boot, but Fabian Schiller has returned the serve and gone 3/10 quicker in the middle sector as well. So the gap down to 2.5 seconds near enough. We'll see what it is when they come across the line that time. Pretty much matched each other, but fastest lap of the race now set by Fabian Schiller. The gap down to 2.4.
Definitely the gap. You're looking at the timing screen as well. The warning flags are out yet again for a string of cars. 54, 80, 88, 99, 786. I tell you what, Deo Santa Maria being kept busy. Track limits at turn 4 and turn 11 and the chicane have certainly been put on watch. Of course, scrutinising those particular areas now as we're seeing Agostini getting right on the tail of David Fuminelli. Of course, they're running this brand new 296 and they haven't yet got used to it. I know speaking to Yannick Mettler earlier on in the weekend, he said they're hoping that they haven't got used to the new 296 ahead of the 488 just yet. And naturally, it looks like now Fuminelli's going to be placed under a little bit of pressure from Agostini.
And of course, we've just been picking up how fast the new 296 is as well. But of course, while we've still got a significant number of 488 cars on the grid, the balance of performance is still trying to keep them pretty equal in terms of their potential lap time. So that's why we're seeing the pro entered Riccardo Agostini pushing the Pro-Am David Fuminelli car. There's the other 296 from Kessel Racing, that belonging to their Pro-Am pairing of Nicola Schiro and Nicola Rossi, also being pressured by a 488 there.
It's quite something to come into a weekend, obviously, after you've been driving a 488 all season long, to all of a sudden jump into the 296. Maybe the same manufacturer, but there are some, no doubt, differences as the performance they hope will increase. But nevertheless, we'll see how they can handle it. Christopher Haase, though, doing a splendid job. Purple again in the first sector on this lap, and he will cross the line very shortly as well and register yet another time. Not fastest again, though. Fabian Schiller still holds that at this stage, but the gap still remains at 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, I was talking to Racing One about their Ferrari 296 in Portimao, and they said it drives more like a prototype than a GT car. Of course, Ferrari returning to the top class of the World Endurance Championship in the Le Mans 24-hour, very successfully this year, it must be said as well. And of course, the Ferrari 296 becoming the first non-German made car to win the Nürburgring 24 hours since about 20 years, something like that this year as well. So all going well for Ferrari in terms of their non-F1 programs so far this year.
Yeah, definitely, indeed. As we now see and set sights on this really thrilling encounter, obviously between a Pro-Am car of Fuminelli, of course the pro driver in that combination as well, with Agostini in behind, who will swap out for fellow pro driver Nicola Marinangeli, as they now hurtle through the next chicane. And a reprimand for car 17. That, of course, belonging, I can just see that further down, just looking on our screen here. That belongs to Diego Menchaca, breaking the formation before the green light. And I tell you what, remember, they were handed a severe penalty as well yesterday, and they might be on the cusp of getting another one today.
Yeah, I think just a slap on the wrist for that one. We saw this in the opening round in Portimao as well, breaking the formation. It didn't look like anything untoward. I would love to see a replay at the start and see where it happened, but nothing looked too out of place from our perspective. But obviously race control's got more camera angles than we do, and so Diego Menchaca getting away with just a slap on the wrist there.
Remember Giuseppe Cipriani coming under scrutiny for that when we went racing at Portimao at the very start of the season after he jumped the formation at the very beginning, getting himself off to a real start. And that one did stand out quite a bit.
It did. It was a bit more obvious, that one, wasn't it?
Absolutely. But no such issue for Cipriani today. Still remains in 16th. Currently 4th in the AM category as well. Konrad Grunwald still managing that extremely well. Of course, the man from the United States who has been very successful over in Abu Dhabi, where of course they did the Gulf 12 Arrow over there as well. Actually won the AM category in that exchange too, partnering the likes of Jean-Claude Sada, who's also his fellow American, and lining up this time as well, as we now see what looks to be the get-speed performance of what looks to be Adamo Seika, having a little look down the inside of Marco Polcini as the scrap starts to unfurl in the latter to midpoint segment of the circuit. And they're currently being led by pro driver Pietro Pirolini of the Oregon team as well.
Yeah, Pirolini obviously still trying to get to grips with the circuit. We were talking about how he hasn't raced here before, and his preparation for this weekend has been very disturbed by mechanical issues during Friday practice. He's keeping ahead of that Kessel Ferrari 296 for now, but down in 18th place. That's obviously not where the Oregon team are used to contending these races, especially yesterday, back on the podium for the first time this year as well. It looked like it might be a spark to their season getting back underway, but so far for the number 19, it's not quite coming together. And the sister car, the 63, Pierre-Louis Chauvet, in 8th place at the moment as well. Although, of course, they've got 2 Pro-Am cars ahead of them, which we expect would fall back later in the race when the gentleman drivers get in the car later.
Yeah, Adamo Seika with a flash of the lights as well, obviously trying to gain on Marco Polcini for 20th place as they now make their way through towards turn 13. There we see as well the Kessel Racing, the brand new one as well, 296, all dressed in blue, as they now make their way around this final corner to begin yet another lap. And a fantastic shot there of Pietro Pirolini making his way around that segment of circuit, being followed by the Kessel Racing car as well. Further back, Adamo Seika getting that rear end really far out there as he made his way around the corner. Had to pull off, I think, a little correction, as you now see the Lion Speed car of Ricard Lietz now making its way through turn 2. Turn 3 coming up next, still giving chase on the Benaldi car ahead of him. See that being driven by Milos Pavlovic, 10th place as well, top 10 so far. Good drive so far from Pavlovic. He makes his way through turn 4 as well, just clipping the curve on entrance. The Porsche taking it a little bit more aggressively as they now head through turn 5.
Yeah, hopefully this Porsche can have a bit of a cleaner race than what it's had so far this season. A lot of bad luck for this car. Broken steering arm, costing them a podium in Portimao. Ricard Lietz was leading with about 20 minutes to go in the Spa Enduro when the rear tyres popped. Now look at this. Haas's lost the lead. Christopher Haase has made a mistake somewhere on this lap, because he's dropped right down and has got Charlie Fagg on the back of him now. Fabian Schiller leads this race now, and looking at the timings, I can't see where that's happened.
Well, it was 2.7 seconds the advantage to Christopher Haase at the start, so he's lost a hell of a lot of time. And have a look at this as well. Charlie Fagg with an opportunity to perhaps take him away from second place as well. As they head down through towards turn 1, you can just see there, very defensive from Christopher Haase, but Schiller now leading here at Hungaroring now. A switch back from Charlie Fagg as they go side by side. There's a performance issue.
He's got a problem.
Surely there must be an issue with that Audi. He was leading the way, an absolutely memorable pole position, but it's suddenly all fallen apart here within the first, should we say, 20 minutes or so. Incredible scenes here, Chris. I can't explain it.
Yeah, I mean, he lost 4 seconds on that lap. And out of turn one, it just didn't go anywhere, did it? I mean, he's sort of up to speed now, but it doesn't look like that car is running at 100% because Charlie Fagg is pulling away from that car with relative ease. What a disappointment for this team that had a great opportunity to score some big points again. A little lock up into the chicane for Haase there. And what is going on with this Audi?
I can imagine there being some words muttered by Christopher Haase in that cockpit right now. He would have wanted certainly a sterling start, did get a sterling start as well, but it's all fallen away. And now David Fuminelli is starting to close up. Now we have a replay. Now there's Charlie Fagg.
Up at one.
Oh, okay. Is there...
So here's how it happened. It was... So well, that's the second time we've seen it not go anywhere out of turn one.
Now, it's not the first time he's locked up, Chris. We saw it earlier on as well. Is there a brakes issue on the Audi?
Potentially. I keep hearing it in the middle sector, like banging on the limiter. I almost wonder if he's lost a gear and he's having to either skip a gear by double shifting or he's having trouble shifting in general. Unbelievable.
Well, he's hemorrhaging Delta at the moment, and obviously Fuminelli is now only within 1.6. Remember, that was 2.5. He's lost a second to the car behind as well. So Haase is now a sitting duck, and I've got my eyes peeled on the car itself to see if there's anything untoward. Something certainly does not look right. We've seen a couple of lockups on the Audi R8, and now it looks like Fuminelli is gaining time and time again on the Audi in front of him here as well. So a lick of the lips here from Fuminelli as the Kessel Racing Ferrari 296 with Agostini in hot pursuit as well, into the pits as well, as we now see, goodness me, the Oregon car coming in. It's not even the driver change window.
No, they're about 30 seconds early.
Pietro Pirolini coming into the pits. What's the plan here, Pietro? What's happening?
Well, they're doing the driver change.
The driver change.
And it's not open yet. That's going to be penalised.
Another 10 seconds now. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now it's open. Driver change is open now, folks. Now that will surely be penalised.
What a bizarre couple of laps. Well, so driver change is on. Let's take stock as we enter, we approach the second half of this race. I'm sure a lot of the top 10 will probably extend this right down to the last possible minute, which will be about 35 minutes into the race. Oh dear, not a smooth change there for the 55 AF Corsa Ferrari there.
That's Jamie Stanley. Laurent de Meus scrambling out of the car. A very strange moment there, to say the least. Now out comes the Oregon Team Lamborghini. Now, I do wonder whether there might be an issue. Pietro Pirolini actually staying in the car, so they haven't effectively done the driver change window, but it looked like the driver had stepped out to make the change, so they're double stopping here.
So there must have been, they assumed he was doing the driver change and got ready to do it, and then they realised, no, I've got a problem, we need to fix it now. And then we'll have to do the driver change in a lap's time. But that's going to completely wreck the race for the number 19. Unless it was simply just a mistake made by Pirolini or a miscommunication in the team. But that car is pretty much just out of the competitive running now.
Well, they might have said that, you know, it's time to come in the following lap or something like that. Maybe he registered that as this lap. Not quite sure, but running wide as well there, from Fabian Schiller, who has a little bit of a moment as he now makes his way through the chicane as well. So we've got the driver change window open, more and more cars coming in. I can already see the Barra Motorsport car making its way through. A Limp coming in as well. So Carol Bash will be jumping in now to replace that of Marcin Jedlinski. Serna Giotto moving up the order. Christian Korzanowski, Cipriani, Steve Jans as well. Also moving up. Marcos Seibert steps in. So does Reese Barr for the SPS Performance Mercedes. There we saw the moment. Charlie Fagg making the move on what has to be a very vulnerable Audi R8, being driven there by Christopher Haase. God, where did it all go wrong, Chris?
Haase now down in 5th place. As it the motor park car who's come in as well. So Marcos Seibert now aboard number 17. We see the Proctors changing hand. Stewart handing over to son Lewis in Greystone McLaren. Yes, and there is race leader Fabian Schiller. These guys will probably extend as much as possible, particularly the Pro-Am runners who've currently got their pros in the car. There we see the ailing East Talent Audi in the back of shot as well. Yannick Mettler is the next car in line to pick to pick Al-Sarafi. We've got traffic coming out of the pit lane as well. Number 27, of course, the Ferrari. That is the Eddie Cheever driven car. And Yannick Mettler here still trying to find a way through on the Audi. He does so down the inside. Just wondering, is there a bit of smoke coming out of the back of that Audi under braking? Or was there some fluid going down? Whoa, the Engstler car getting very wide on the exit of 3, caught up with the traffic there.
Yeah, Luca Engstler getting tied up, heading out of turn 3, heading up towards turn 4 now. We'll have a little look down the inside of the AF course to try and certainly get himself back through this little bit of a fight. Tussle here, again wide there from Luca Engstler as he looks to try and push the limits in order to try and gain and gain and gain. Warning for car number 61, as well as Conrad Grunwald, everybody. Maximilian Paul now coming into the pits again. Luca Engstler looking all over the back of the 27, that of course belonging to that of Eddie Cheever, as well as Marco Polcini, as well as they now whip through sector 2, heading towards sector 3. Maximilian Paul now on his outlap, of course now in the car as well. Adam Osaka, who will I'm sure step in later on too. There is the Benaldi, of course getting ready for Martin ahead of Andrei Lewandowski, as then we also see them make their way now through the final points on this circuit now. This is where we see driver changes come in. This is where the strategy makes the difference, and we'll soon see who comes out on top this time.
So now Eddie Cheever in the 27, of course, a Ferrari, now going to try and unlap himself from the Audi, and also wants to stay ahead of the Engstler car as well, because this is a crucial moment in his pit stop phase, and he wants to not have to lose time by letting cars that are a lap ahead of him through. This is the AM Motorpark car, and Timo Rumpf jumping on board the number 65 from Heiko Neumann. Obviously, Karel Basch now back out on track, running alongside the 51 car of Agostini, but separated by a lap. Patrick Kolb now getting on board the 911 Porsche.
Heading up through turn 4 now, you can just see there the Benaldi of Martin Kodrick also in behind as well, so he's going to be in a mix of a fight here with that of Karel Basch as well. As now make their way heading out, so that's going to be a battle in the Pro-Am contingent as they head up through towards the very, very tight chicane. Of course, Nicolo Schiro further up the road from Karel Basch at this point as they now peel through, and obviously Basch keen to unlap himself at this point. Obviously, pit stop still to come into play, so obviously when that AF Corsa comes in, obviously Karel Basch will be allowed through, but he's still not content with losing the time that he is losing at this stage, certainly with 30 minutes and 30 still to go. Every minute, every second counts, and the Audi R8 LMS now very wary of the Benaldi Lamborghini making its way through. Karel Basch now lurches forward, and the Benaldi Motor will have to back off a little bit there just to avoid the contact between that of Eddie Cheever, between that of the car as well that was ahead too, as they now head through turn 13. There you see as well, of course, David Fuminelli still out on track as well. Karel Basch also making his way through the final corner too. But we're going to take a look at the instant replay, and this was the moment, of course, diving down the inside, trying to gain the places. Of course, Agostini unable to defend the place, but at this stage, Karel Basch needs to make the big move to the Pro-Am.
Yeah, so not for position, of course, and you think, why get involved in the fight? You just let the guy go, you end up losing less time, probably. But Agostini here has now got Kodrick for close company as well. So he fancies having a go at unlapping himself. The gap is 5.5 seconds now, by the way, which is Schiller over Charlie Fagg, with David Fuminelli still running in 3rd place there. Up towards turn 4 once again, and Kodrick. Remember, that was the car that was on pole position yesterday with Kodrick at the wheel. And now look at Karel Basch taking no prisoners. Now he's on the back of David Fuminelli.
Oh, he's a very fast driver indeed, and back in the Audi as well. He's going to be feeling full of confidence. Knows this car like the back of his hand. The car that would take him to the title last season. They go side by side again. So close to contact there between him and David Fuminelli, who's still obviously trying to get used to the new Ferrari 296, now coming under excruciating stress from that of the Audi R8 in behind as well. Through the next stride, these two juggernauts in the world of GT racing, obviously witnessing these two drivers that gave it everything last year, both in the Pro-Am category. Fuminelli still yet to box and undertake the driver change, whereas Karel Basch certainly has, and is just trying to gain as much time as he can in order to affect the Pro-Am race here at this point. As they now head through turn 13, a very tight line indeed from Karel Basch as they head through turn 14 as well. No doubt he will have the straight line speed in his hands here as they now exit out of 14 and head down through towards turn 1. Across the line once again to begin yet another lap. Reece Barr sets the fastest lap with a 1:44. In comes now the race leader, as now Fabian Schiller will head out from Al Faisal Al Zubair as they bid to take another win. But in now, down the inside, Karel Bash. Cut back here from David Fuminelli. He's not going to continue with it. It is still Bash. It will be Bash. He now moves ahead of Fuminelli, and now he needs to put in some serious laps as now the driver changes continue.
Yeah, should have some clear air ahead of him now. Here comes the ailing Audi. Chris Vaser about to hand over to Simon Riker. And Al Faisal Al Zubair jumping on board the Almanar Racing by Get Speed Mercedes as well, as you mentioned. You see it just in the background there with the 25 in the pits as well. And that is Cozy getting in there for Serna Giotto. So remember, this car, the 23, has 10 seconds of success penalty to take. The Almanar Racing, which was our race leader, has 20 seconds to take, as we see a replay of Karel Bash here unlapping himself against David Fuminelli in the bid for some clean air, try and make a difference in that Pro-Am battle, because Karel Bash currently 6th in that class, David Fuminelli leading it, but we are in the middle of the pit stop window, so that could shake out later on. And now this car, the 69, which now leads in the middle of the pit stop phase, has no additional time in the pits to take. So out comes Al Faisal Al Zubair. He comes out still ahead of Simon Riker, as you'd expect with that car seemingly still having problems.
Now left, obviously, with the top 9 that is still yet to box at this stage.
Yes.
Charlie Fagg obviously now needs to put in a real shift. They haven't got a success penalty in this particular race, so they need to make the most of it. Agostini comes in now as well, so Nicola Marinangeli will be making his way into the seat now himself for AF Corsa. They now stop, need a big jump. Obviously, they have to make the most of this. The Benaldi car of Milos Pavlovic as well coming into the pits too. He's going to make a change here. Sampon Javinil now in alleged unsafe release of car treble 7. That's Karel Bash.
Yes. So Karel Bash doing a pretty mega job so far in his stint, but that car now under investigation for an unsafe release. That could bring things to an early end for them. As we see, here's the race leader getting caught up in the traffic, getting around the 911 Mercedes. And now, who's that? It's the AF Corsa Ferrari ahead of them as well. This is going to be so frustrating for Charlie Fagg, who needs to be putting in the sector times during this pit stop window. He wants to maximise Fagg's driving time. Got a little wide there as well, while the 25, just like it was yesterday, not exactly yielding to the cars that are trying to put a lap on it.
No, not at all. Charlie Fagg now knows that he's a man on a mission, because obviously yet to box. He'll be very much aware, I'm sure. There's been some team radio involved. Karel Bash setting the fastest lap of the race as well. Still the alleged safe release is under investigation, as now down the inside goes Charlie Fagg to make the move and give himself the clean air. Obviously at this point, knowing now that gaining will be Al Faisal Al Zubair. Marcos Seibert as well is out on track too and is also part of the top pro conglomerate. In comes Fagg now as the driver change window comes into the final minute.
So they were not separated by that many seconds before the pit stop window. So providing everything goes smoothly here, Charlie Ball Sam DeHaan, when he gets in the car, should, in theory, come out ahead. But let's see what happens, because Charlie Fagg did lose an awful lot of time in that middle sector as he was caught up behind the AF Corsa Ferrari. So car up on its jacks, and Sam DeHaan will get in the car. Meanwhile, Al Faisal Al Zubair setting some very good sector times. His personal best in the first sector. He's currently in 9th place. As well, we've got some side-by-side between the two Olymp cars. I'm sure that will have been a heart-in-mouth moment for the team watching on.
Heading around turn 3, it got very up close and personal now as we're now seeing them all stretched together. Obviously, the car that was driven by Steve Jans, I believe, in the mix of all this too. Of course, being stepped in now by Axel Blom, as we now see some more changes. Dexter Muller stepping in for Yannick Mettler as well in the Pro-Am category, as now we see them once again fighting with the car as they now hurtle through the next left-hander, Karel Bash, certainly trying to be a thorn in the side of that Mercedes. There we also see the car number 61 also in the pits, and of course being Jean-Claude Sada, who now jumps in ahead of that of Conrad Grunwald, as now we see more and more of them get tied up now. Bash has obviously already stopped. We still get to hear about that unsafe release as to whether they're going to make a decision. We haven't had an official response just yet, but we will keep you posted, as we're now seeing also the car of Sakana. It was coming. I think it was coming. There's an obvious issue, certainly off the back of that East Talent Audi. This was the move, indeed, of Charlie Fagg on Agostini. And it was necessary at that point.
Yeah, Jans was trying to get up on the inside there as well. But so Sam de Haan now is out on track. And the question is going to be, where is he in relation to Faisal Al-Zubair? 27, they're getting caught up. Oh, that's the Olymp Ferrari going for a spin down to the penultimate corner as well. Stanislav Jedlinski has had a bit of a rotation down there. It looks to me, George, on the timing screen that Sam de Haan has come out still in the lead of this race by some 5 seconds.
Yeah, he's currently holding on to a very, very happy margin. I tell you what, if they take a win here in race 2, it would be so big for their championship charge because of course, they took that 4th place. That was the mission from yesterday. They did not fathom a race win this weekend, but they might be on the cusp now of securing something great. I did catch Sam de Haan, and I said, feeling a little bit more optimistic this time. He said, I think so. We're chasing the win. And that's exactly what he's doing. They're currently leading the way. 5 seconds ahead of Nicola Marinangeli as well, who's also got to put in a mighty stint to bring home a podium. And this is the moment, the Mirage Motorsport Mercedes coming together with none other than that of Stanislav Jedlinski, unfortunately sending him into a spin.
Yeah, man, we've got side by side for second place, I think, behind Sam de Haan there, because Nicola Marinangeli was coming under big pressure from Maximilian Paul, who was in 3rd place there. They were separated by very little over the line. And Marcos Seber is in 4th place amongst all that as well, with Faisal Al-Zubair coming out in 5th place in the end as a result of that 22nd in total of success penalty effectively to take. Now, I had yellow flags out at turn 4. This is why the 88 AF Corsa Ferrari going for a spin. Too much go. Oh, God, a very close moment there with what I think was Stanislav Jedlinski. As he tried to avoid that car. Very nearly a major incident there, but then we did see Maximilian Paul still sat behind the 51 Ferrari for 2nd place, and Marcos Seber only 3/4 of a second behind them as well. It's not over for the podium at all, and Faisal Al-Zubair is only 3 seconds behind them as well. So if they keep fighting, they will bring Al-Zubair right back into the mix.
Yeah, Marcos Seber has been so quick as well. The last few laps have been stellar from him as well. Former Euro Formula Open driver, has also raced in the world of Formula 3 as well, has raced across many of the junior single-seater categories and has helped develop many great drivers himself, now racing in GT3 classification here with Motor Park, and they have already won a race this season. Remember, they took the they took round 1, race 2 on that occasion, so they do enjoy race 2 races. We know that so much, so they could yet achieve something big here, as now Maximilian Paul now has a little look down the inside of Nicola Marinangeli as they head out of turn 14. They're all watching on, waiting and seeing as to what happens. We caught Rob McCornage there in the back. He'll be thrilled with what's currently transpiring here on circuit. Maximilian Paul still giving chase here after Marinangeli, who has the benefit of that straight line speed. But just take a look at Marcos Seber, who looks oh so quick in that Mercedes AMG.
A Lamborghini straight line performance not looking exceptional. It seemed to lose out to the Ferrari, and the Mercedes behind it closed in on it as well. So Maximilian Paul's going to have to get a little inventive here if he wants to clear Marinangeli and move into 2nd place. Marinangeli going to be soaking up this pressure. His first season in GT cars, having done a lot of single-seater racing with Formula Renault and Formula Regional, and even a partial Euro Formula Open campaign as well. And now making the switch to GTs with AF Corsa Ferrari, and it's a similar story for the cars behind them as well. But look at that, Marcos Seber really closing in on these guys now, and they need to kind of make up for what was a pretty disastrous race for them yesterday, and also minimize the deficit that they're losing to the championship leaders, who are leading this race as well, because they will extend their championship lead, and they also want to just stick the knife into the East Talent Audi as well, because they are scoring no points today.
No, huge chance as well for Oregon as well to take home another podium. Of course, this will be their second debut if they can hold on to this, but certainly with Seabear doing what he's doing right now, it could prove to be for naught. Further back as well, yeah, you can see it, the Alman are racing it, Mercedes as well coming into view. Al-Fazl Al-Zubair has brought himself into the equation. Dexter Miller also gaining here as well, and there, oh, goodness me, again, this time Stanislav Jedlinski very nearly tying up there with Marin Angeli. That could open the door here for Maximilian Paul, heading down the long straight, trying to break the dirty air, late on the brakes, will he go for it? Closing off the inside there, Marin Angeli, as now they come through towards turn one. Is he going to defend the outside? Certainly the Oregon hasn't quite got enough to try and usurp him heading through in towards turn two, but I tell you what, questions were asked, they were very nearly answered as well.
And he's great on the brakes, especially to that first corner. Oh, Marin Angeli going out a little wide there, that could open the door for Maximilian Paul. He'll have a better run up the hill towards turn four, but it doesn't look like the momentum is going to be enough to draw him alongside. It would be a brave man indeed to make a pass there at turn four. Look who's arrived on the scene as well. The man who's currently lapping this track faster than anyone else, it's Al-Fazl Al-Zubair.
Yeah, absolutely. What a tie-up we have here. Marin Angeli, the cork in the bottle at this stage, obviously holding on to that second place after that initial stint from Agostini that brought them this high up, of course. Ferrari, of course, the Ferrari further back as well. Maximilian Paul looking every which way possible to get past the Ferrari as they make their way through the second sector and into the third as well. Al-Fazl Al-Zubair currently sat in fifth, already a race winner this weekend. They want to do the double, but they've got a little bit of work to do because Sam Dahan, with all this scrapping going on, is able to benefact off this. He's now 3.8 seconds up the road from Marin Angeli, and now this has invited the battle here between that and Marin Angeli, Paul, Seabear, and now Al-Zubair. It's mouth-watering.
Absolutely brilliant. Three different manufacturers involved in this fight as well, all with very different performance characteristics and different ways of producing the lap time as well. But Al-Fazl Al-Zubair looking very, very racy here at the back of this queue. So once again, Marin Angeli leads them over the line, and Maximilian Paul, I'm sure, will struggle for a bit of performance as the Engsler car trying to get up on the inside here of Patrick Kolb. So that's Mokina in the Engsler Audi going right round the outside.
Oh,
wow.
You don't see moves there.
That was inventive. So he was already clambering all over the curb to try and get up the inside. There was just less than an Audi's width there, I think, but he made it work, and right around the outside, Kwanda up into 9th place. Sensational move as we rejoin the battle for second place. And this has got all the hallmarks of what we saw yesterday, George, where those three cars that were leading just waiting for something to happen, waiting to pick up the pieces from somebody else's mistake. That's exactly what Fabian Schiller did. I'm sure that's what Al-Fazl Al-Zubair, his teammate, is going to try and do as well.
I am ingrained into this scrap. It's absolutely fascinating. Well, you've got Marin Angeli now currently sat in second, but look at Paul in third as well. The Oregon Team Lamborghini, a dip into the dirt, and I tell you what, that won't help you there, Al-Zubair. And I think as well, Maximilian Paul might have trod in some as well. They head through now, the middle sector, sector 3 coming up next as well, and then of course they will be making their way on another lap. Now who will blink first? Who's it going to be? Paul in third place, trying to gain obviously on Marin Angeli's here, of course, the Ferrari. Then in behind as well we have Marcos Seabear, lovely drone cam shot as well of the four cars as they now make their way through sector 3. They'll dip now through towards the next left, a very tight hairpin. Don't get onto the curb, it will cost you. It's not really a curb, but it's a raised section of circuit that can send you into a spin. Round the final corner as well at turn 14, they're cruising together in tandem. The gap's thinner than a fly's eyelash. Marin Angeli takes them down the straight yet again with Maximilian Paul together with them as well. There is Sam Dahan, who still holds the lead, but that gap has come down to 3.1 seconds. Seabear getting into the aero of that of the Oregon Lamborghini as well. Goes for a deep dive around the outside. Now that could be costly, because in comes now Al-Fazl Al-Zubair. Can't quite find enough out of turn 1, but it was oh so dangerous there from Seabear. It was bold, but risky.
Yeah, I wonder if the teams have told them that these guys are closing in on the race leader, Sam Dahan here. Last time round, Marin Angeli was 0.6 quicker than Sam Dahan. So if they keep working together, instead of squabbling, they might just be able to catch Dahan before the end of the race. but then they'll have to squabble it out amongst themselves before that. And if you're Al Zubair at the back of this queue, you're not waiting around for that. There's no time. There's only 14 minutes left on the clock. He's got to make forward progress.
He certainly does. Only one way, and that is forwards. Rhys Barr now overtakes Frederick Yusey for that 6th spot as well. So that's the Pro Car getting ahead of the Pro-Am, now still Pro-Am leader of Frederick Yusey. But Dexter Muller is closing, and there could yet be a tie for the Pro-Am as well. Now there's traffic as well. The Racing One Ferrari in the mix of this. Now this is the fight. This was the moment where Rhys Barr would take it through the inside, a very tight line heading through turn 2, but managing to get past Yusey, who doesn't have necessarily fond memories of this part of the circuit, because this is where it all went wrong yesterday at the start. But a comprehensive move there from Rhys Barr.
Yeah, that's 6th place for him now. Frederick Yusey still holding the Pro-Am lead. I see Maxi Paul getting very close there with Marin Angeli. This could be his best opportunity yet. We've got to see how that Lamborghini performs in a straight line now, because it's not been the fastest in the speed traps at all. So coming down the straight once again, 2.8 seconds now. This group of cars has eroded the lead margin, but the Lamborghini can do nothing with the straight line performance it's got compared to the Ferrari.
He's going to make the most of the corners, I think, at this stage. Obviously, we saw Maximilian Paul earlier on trying to negotiate his way around. Super drive so far. Martin Kodrick, though, making his way up into 16th place ahead of Jean-Claude Sarda, as now we see them make their way through turn 2. Now the AF Corsa Ferrari, once again, doing a stellar job. Nicola Marinangeli has been superb, keeping Maximilian Paul at bay. Obviously, having the betterment, I think, of the straight line speed heading down through towards turn 1, which is useful, but naturally maintaining the pace in the corners is also very imperative, as now the Lamborghini goes hunting again. But a very wide line there from Marcos Zubair, again inviting that of Al-Faisal Al-Zubair into the mix, and car 25 getting another 3-second time penalty to be added. So there we are, a penalisation coming in, and that's for Alessandro Cosi in the AF Corsa.
Yeah, the battle kind of hotting up there. He's 4th in class at the moment. The Pro-Am lead battle separated by very little as well. Frederick Yusey coming under big pressure from Dexter Muller in the Carbahn Mercedes, number 54. That's 7th and 8th overall, but this battle for 2nd place absolutely enthralling. They're still closing in on our race leader, Sam DeHaan. The gap down to 2.4 with about 11.5 minutes remaining on the clock. I wonder just how this is going to play out. Penalty for car number 26 as well. That's the Racing One Ferrari 296, and that's for not serving the handicap correctly.
Yeah, absolutely, getting penalised for that. Obviously, we saw plenty of cars trying to come in and make those necessary swaps, and then they make their way down the straight once again, breaking under the dirty air. Obviously, Maximilian Paul trying everything here to gain in terms of the straight line, but still unable to do so. And it's inviting again Marcos Zubair to get closer, and also towing along Al-Faisal Al-Zubair as well. Sam DeHaan still, once again, witnessing the time gap cruise downwards. 2.3 seconds now is where it sits, with the gap there in behind as well. There's now another wide line taken by Zubair as he looks to try and keep Al-Zubair behind him here. Obviously, these two in the Mercedes coming together. A fascinating display. Zubair obviously looking to try and make up for what happened to them yesterday.
Absolutely, and also minimise the championship loss as well. Yes, Sam DeHaan and Charlie Fagg, as it stands, are extending their championship lead. And if they come away with 4th first, they'll be very happy with that, having said or told us all weekend, oh, this car doesn't work for our car, or this track doesn't work for our car, but it seems to be working quite well at the moment. But there you see, 4/10 faster Nicola Marinangeli than our race leader Sam DeHaan last time around, and the cars behind him are matching that pace as well. So this group of cars is very much closing down the number 69 Optima Motorsport car. And I think that says, well, quite a lot about the performance of these 3 cars, because let me tell you, Sam DeHaan is no slouch at all. Of course, won the Spa Enduro last time out as well, and has won other GTOpen races during his wildcards appearances in 2021, and really been pushing to appear more on the international scene. But Marinangeli here, the 19-year-old Italian, pushing hard with just under 10 minutes left on the clock, and this is the man who's leading the race, Sam DeHaan. We're riding on board with the team, watching on, looking at that gap being eroded, and just analysing the sector times more and more. Not not quite as big a chunk taken out that time, around a quarter of a second, the gap down to 2.1. But what are they going to do with this? At some point, are they going to realise that they might not catch him in time and start squabbling among themselves?
That's the big question. I mean, I want to allude to the fact as well that if he gets within the slipstream of Samuel Dahan, obviously we've seen how quick the Ferrari is in a straight line. Obviously the Lamborghini unable to get quite as close to it despite having the slipstream, just isn't able to gain at all. Now, can the same be said for the McLaren here at this point as well, with 8.5 minutes still to go? There you see them now running around turn 5 as well. Al-Faisal Al-Zubair still there in behind that of Marcos Seibert in the fellow Mercedes. I incidentally want to say as well that if Nicola Marinangeli does indeed take this race victory, he'll be the first Ferrari we've seen this season win overall in this championship. So keep your eyes peeled. There could be some late drama ahead. 8 minutes still to go, and it's the Optimum Motorsport Red Zebra McLaren being driven by Samuel Dahan, currently leading the way, and in comes Kiki Saknana with a big move as well, and that is on Jean-Claude Sada, and there's a Racing One Ferrari also going through. He's going to split the difference. He's going to take the 2. No, not quite, but great move there from Kiki.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's 18th place overall and 2nd in the AM category. So good points there. That AM category still being led by Giuseppe Cipriani in 13th place overall, and beating even some of the pro cars at the moment, because the number 19, Dan Arrow, still behind him by 6 seconds as well, though I'm sure that gap will come down in the latter stages of this race. Now, I wonder here why Maximilian Paul hasn't been just following the wheel tracks and sitting in the slipstream of that Ferrari, which is not going to be helping the lack of straight line speed in that Lamborghini at all. I almost wonder if it's got an overheating engine, and that's why they're trying to find just some clean air whenever it can on the one and only straight on this circuit. So not being able to tuck into the slipstream there, not doing them any favours. Leak out there, though. 1.6 seconds now, with 7 minutes remaining. This could come right down to the wire.
I think it could do. Certainly with 6 minutes and 50, enough time for some drama. And again, Al-Faisal Al-Zubair haunting the rear wing of Marcos Seibert. Equilateral gaps there between Paul, Seibert and Al-Zubair. 0.5 of a second, certainly separating each of them as well. As there we see Maximilian Paul still hunting down Marinangeli for that 2nd place. 1.6 seconds now is the gap between Marinangeli and Dahan, so he's starting to put some real numbers in between them. I can tell you that Marinangeli was fastest again in that first sector, not by much, but still a couple, well, nearly a couple of hundredths of a second anyway. Sector 2 they come through now. Now that time Marinangeli a lot faster, or at least a bit extra faster in the 2nd sector. Seems to be the place where he favours it, finds it in the middle sector, and then maybe in sector 3 as well, as Al-Faisal Al-Zubair whips through this very, very tight hairpin bend, heading through turn 13. 14 then awaits. The Ferrari leads them through now, heading through that final corner, and again haunting that rear wing of Seibert's car. The 2 Mercs come in together. The extensional roar that you hear down the straights. They now whip through past our commentary box, and still now, as they make their way down towards turn 1, Nicolo Shiro going ahead of Dexter Muller as well in the Pro-Am. 2nd place, that is, now in the Pro-Am for Shiro, as he now looks to give chase on the Frederick Yusei through turn 1. Still they go. Al-Faisal Al-Zubair still not able to overtake that of Marcos Seibert.
Yeah, Shiro now 3 seconds behind Pro-Am leader Frederick Yusei. He's got Patrick Kolb in between them as well, so we'll keep an eye on that in the final 5 minutes of this race. But surely now this is going to come down to between Dahan and Marinangeli. The pairing of Marinangeli and Agostini could well be taking their first victory of the season. Both drivers who have switched from the world of single-seater racing to the world of GTs. Agostini doing that some years ago now, in 2015. For Marinangeli, it's his first year in the GT scene, and he's doing a fantastic job keeping these drivers at bay at the moment, and also hunting down Sam Dahan. The drivers around him much more experienced in these types of cars.
Yeah, and also you've got to consider the reputation these drivers carry as well. I mean, you look at Al-Faisal Al-Zubair, obviously part of that contingent with Fabian Schiller that went on to win yesterday yesterday, also taking the very first race win this season at Portimao. Then followed up by Marcos Seibert as well, who's also a race winner along with Diego Menchaca. They took the race 2 victory in that same weekend too at Portimao. And now once again, this time, it's on Marinangeli to keep these drivers behind, but at the same time close the gap to that of Sam Dahan out in front. The gap now at 1.4, but very soon we'll get an update as they make their way across the line, coming out of turn 14, as we now see them once again rounding this final corner. Again, the two Mercedes that clubbed together. Maximilian Paul looking a bit closer though this time, heading out of the final bend, so might be a chance this time. In fact, he is 3/10 closer, or he is 3/10 away, still not able to make the crucial move. But take a look at Marinangeli, 1.3 away from Sam Dahan.
I mean, it's as soon as they get onto the straight, he pulls out of the slipstream. So he's not even attempting to make an attack here on Marinangeli. And last time around, that's the first time Dahan's been quicker than the chasing pack. It was only by 1/10 of a second, but the gap remains 1.3 seconds now. And if he can keep up that pace, he should well be safe to the end of the race. But it's going to be very nip and tuck in the final 3.5 minutes here. And Marinangeli going to keep the hammer down. The cars behind him still continuing to squabble as well. Faisal Al-Zubair desperately trying to find a way past Marcos Seibert. And I think even Seibert was lighting up the rear tyres somewhat out of the first corner in a bid to stay ahead of the fellow Mercedes.
Look at him pushing around Marcos Seibert through the middle sector as well. I can imagine what Seibert's thinking at this moment in time. There's Sam Dahan getting a little squirrely on the curb though. That won't help. 1.2 seconds the gap at this point, and yet it still could come down. We have got 2 minutes and 50, so Marinangeli needs to get busy now heading into the final sector and when he begins this next lap. And look at them all crawling in behind. Maximilian Paul again just losing a little bit in behind that of Marinangeli as well. That gap now to 0.6 of a second. Faisal Al-Zubair still on the rear of Marcos Seibert's Mercedes 2 as they head round turn 13. And again, better in that final sector is that of Faisal Al-Zubair, working hard to try and rein in the delta yet again in hope that he can get a better straight line speed. Again, coming around the final corner, pushing Seibert through it, but it's the exit heading out of the final corner that tends to favour Seibert. How much longer can it last though? Because this is the closest Faisal Al-Zubair has been, and while the clock is ticking, he must take his chance. Again though, I think Maximilian Paul, you don't suppose he's settling for third at this point?
I don't think it's in his nature to settle for third. I think either they've accepted they need to close down on Dahan, and he's definitely not going to pass Marinangeli to save them both losing some time, or he's carrying some kind of overheating issue and is trying to find clean and crucially cool air wherever he can, which on this circuit there are not many opportunities for that, unfortunately. That's my guess anyway.
Yeah, Patrick Kolb going ahead of Nicolo Schiro as well. Of course, that's the pro car getting ahead of the Pro-Am. Schiro still chasing after Frederick Yusey at this point, but it is within 0.5 of a second at this point, so is charging for that Pro-Am lead as we now see the top 3, should we say top 5 at this point, all within near enough 1.5 seconds together. Samuel Dahan now still leading the advantage, in fact 2 seconds I'd argue at this point, because obviously
2.2 seconds,
2.2, yeah, we're going to play some exact maths here because obviously Dahan is out in front. I was looking at the deltas below it, but looking at this scrap that's coming into fruition now, I can see that Paul has marched out 0.6, Al-Zubair 0.2 within the back of Seibert.
Yeah, it's going down to the wire, less than a minute left on the clock, so this will be the penultimate lap of the race, which means that Sam Dahan has only got one more lap between him and victory, or they might add another one actually, depending on when he gets across the line, but the gap's 1 second. Coming down to the crucial closing stages, Dahan under so much pressure here, and he just has to not make a mistake in the final few kilometers of this race. We've got another incident under investigation. That is the Mirage and the Olymp contact we saw down at turn 13. That'll happen after the race, because all eyes now are on this lead battle. And we are, confirmation, we are on the final lap, and 2.2 seconds covers the top 5. And they're coming up on traffic, George. This could be crucial. The street art car going very, very slowly around turn 2 and keeping well out of the way of the leaders. A good job done there. Definitely doesn't want to get caught up in all of this. What has Marinangeli got left in the tank? The gap for the first time is under 1 second now as they exited the first sector.
Yeah, absolutely. Fourth corner, turn 4, as they make their way in towards turn 5 as well, just peeling through this very nip and tuck right-hander Dan Arrow, getting ahead of Giuseppe Cipriani, who still leads the AM category at this point. But Samuel Dahan, who has done a sterling job since his stint's unfurled, doing his utmost to try and retain this P1 with certainly a prosaic and gaining Nicola Marinangeli, who's looking to try and make a charge to enlist a Ferrari for the first time.
He's going through the
They come together, heading through the final sector. Marinangeli takes the lead of the race, and not only that as well, it has to be said that Maximilian Paul is in second as well, as we now see them still come together. Faisal Al-Zubair, he moves up, so does Seabear as well, and Optimum Motorsport must be seething at the prospects they've lost this race when it was so clearly in their hands. But now as they enter the final 2 corners, we have got the battle now between Maximilian Paul, now brewing with Marinangeli, the man who contested in Euro Formula last season. They come together around turn 14. Deary me, last year's champions. They've done it. They made the move. They made it stick. It's going to be Maximilian Paul and Oregon's first race win this season.
Unbelievable! Maximilian Paul with the move of the ages to take the lead of the final corner of this race. What a day for Maximilian Paul at Team Oregon.
That was worth the wait, folks at home. It was worth the wait. Jerry Canavicio is absolutely elated. I cannot believe what we've just seen. Marinangeli looking to give AF Corsa its first pro win, not to mention a first Ferrari win this season in the overall race results. Marcos Seabear comes home in third. Faisal Al-Zubair in fourth. Samuel Dahan, he's going to be inconsolable.
Sam Dahan absolutely bullied off the racetrack by those chasing cars, and I tell you, that was some aggressive car behavior he was showing there at turn 2 just now. And I don't want to say anything that's going to ruin this, but if I were Optimum, I would be on the phone to race control immediately, telling them to take a look at they're banging wheels. Dahan is not impressed at all, but yeah, I would be asking them to be looking at 51 for cutting the chicane on that last lap. Their contact is under investigation, but I would be telling them, take a look at how he took the chicane on the last lap, because he gained an awful lot of time that's suddenly put him in a position to bully Dahan off the road there. But that doesn't take anything away from that man right there, Maximilian Paul. Unbelievable. So we only just caught a glimpse of it here. Definitely a whack. And that pushes Dahan off. I mean...
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I'd
say that's pretty cut and, you know... I think at this point, I think it's clear cut.
It doesn't take anything away from Maxi Paul. I mean, they can't take the win away from him, but they always...
I think unfortunately for Sam Dahan, he's a victim of circumstance here, and obviously coming into contact here with Nicola Marinangeli, you know, it pretty much was that typified the result at the end of the race, and naturally now, take nothing away from Maximilian Paul, there's the response as well in the Optimum garage. They are absolutely stunned. And I can understand the despondence, obviously, in amongst the team, because they had another race win on the cards. This was the move.
Look at this.
This is stunning.
This is move of the year right here. Maximilian Paul. We said he needed to get inventive. He had to do it in the corners because it's got no straight line speed. What a stunning,
he doesn't need straights, Chris. He doesn't need straights. He just needs turn 14.
That's truly unbelievable. I can't wait to see how they're going to celebrate this.
For the response to this now. Oregon have not won a race yet this season. Let's take a look at the results. It's Pierre-Louis Chauvert and Maximilian Paul who take the victory here. That is your official classification, folks. Marinangeli and Agostini in second, at least for now. Menchaca and Seabear in third. Faisal Al-Zubair and Fabian Schiller in fourth. Sam Dahan and Charlie Fagg in fifth, with Reece Barr and Pitamba in sixth. Kwanda and Exler in seventh, with Jedlinski and Bash further down as well. They, in fact, taking the Pro-Am win, Carol Bash, so he'll be well chuffed with that. Pietro Pirolini and Dan Arrow, we alluded to the fact they weren't used to the circuit, but hat tip to Giuseppe Cipriani for taking the AM win as well. Further down, Libor Milotta A great race for Mirage Motorsport in their home race as well, achieving a 21st, obviously getting in the mix as well in the AM category, finishing 4th in that extent, and commiserations as well to Christopher Haase and Simon Roniker losing out. But look at this, the jubilation, the scenes. I can imagine now that Jerry Cannaviccio and Pier Giorgio Testa are going to be thrilled. There is Pierre-Louis Chauvert as well. The smiles on the faces of Team Oregon. The reigning champions are back on the top step, and they can thank that man, Maximilian Paul.
Oh, now this is going to be Marin Angeli just checking the state of the front left of his car after it made contact with the Optimum. Confirmation that incident is under investigation. It won't affect the race win, I'd have thought, but it might well affect second place. And wow, suddenly the championship being turned on its head there in just a few corners, because Sam de Haan and Charlie Fag were going to extend their points lead. Now it's Marcos Seibert and Diego Mancheco who are in the pound seat in 17, with what could potentially now be a second place finish if Marin Angeli is penalised. And I believe that will give them the championship lead.
Yeah, the pirate flag being waved in Parc Fermé, no less. But let's go through the first 3 cars. Marcos Seibert finishing an almighty 3rd after all his efforts, of course, across the weekend. Had a difficult race yesterday, but they've got a podium. Nicola Marinangeli and Agostini in 2nd as well, subject to the steward's overview, to say the least. Maximilian Paul, though, this is the storybook finish that we were looking for. Oregon on top once again, and they're standing by with Alfredo Filipponi.
A race is never finished until it's finished. Maximilian Paul, Pierre-Louis Chauvert, what a great victory in race 2 here at the Hungaroring. And Max, last lap, crazy.
Thank you very much. Obviously, after a difficult start of the season, finally we managed to bring home some good points this weekend. And yeah, obviously, we always try to aim for the win, and today we got it. So thanks to his good job and the team. And I was able to finish it, so we are very happy.
The last move was wow.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just tried to stick into it and see what happens. Or win or finish 2nd was the only chance, and I managed to take the 1st place.
Pierre-Louis, you were expecting that?
Honestly, let's say I did my best in the first stints to bring the car in the best position for Max, and then he did a really good job. Honestly, the move was amazing. I couldn't expect that 2 laps before the end, but he made it, so really amazing.
Well done, guys. Podium now.
Thank you.
Well, thoroughly deserved as well. Let's go through the highlights, folks. Go, how do you unravel that one? Let's step up now. Race 2. Highlights here at Hungaroring and getting underway. Obviously, we saw it was a slow one for the certainly for the Optimum Motorsport McLaren. Christopher Haase getting off to a big jump already from the get-go. We saw there further back as well the Almana racing by Get Speed, making its way around the outside in towards turn 2, making the most, of course, of the slip-up that was delivered by Charlie Fag, taking P2 at the get-go too. There's a lot of jumbling about, finding places and positions. Christopher Haase in the initial, taking the lead, going out 2.6 seconds clear in the initial, but it would all come undone after an issue clearly became apparent on the Audi R8, allowing that of Fabian Schiller through in the initial stint. Then, of course, it was Charlie Fag who tried to close the gap after a brilliant stint in the first place, trying to stay in touch of that Almana Racing Get Speed at the very front of the order. They first had to get past Christopher Haase's limping Audi R8 LMS, and they certainly did just that, breaking through on the inside out of turn 1, and then left down through towards turn 2 in second place. In came, though, the Almana Racing. Of course, the car that would go on to win race 1. Looking back at this as well, the Red Zebra was certainly still trying to make some prosaic moves, getting past Agostini in that instance. And then we saw the big almighty scrap happening between the cars up at the front end. There, Marinangeli came into contact with no less than the car that was looking to take the race win, that being Sam de Haan and Optimum Motorsport. Marinangeli would then lead in the initial, but it all became apparent later on in the race. As the Red Zebra became under increasing pressure, it would allow the 2 Mercedes through, with Motorpark taking 3rd place. Maximilian Paul with an absolutely thrilling dynamic move, cutting back out of turn 13, left the door wide open for himself, heading through the final corner at 14, to then tee up an almighty display, an almighty charge, heading up towards the line out of turn 14 to take the eventual victory and Oregon's first win of the season. And this, of course, leads us to the podium celebrations. Third place going to that of Marcos Seibert and Diego Menchaca. Some consolidation after what happened yesterday. In second place as well, currently for now at least, Nicola Marinangeli and Agostini as well, Riccardo Agostini. But Pierre-Louis Chauvert and Maximilian Paul, your race winners. The pirate flag being raised aloft by Jerry Canavicio, who joins them. And we now have the national anthem.
Congratulations, guys.
Well, one of the most thrilling finishes we have seen in this series history, without any doubt in my mind. Jerry Canavicio, as the trophies come out. Chris, what do you make of that?
I mean, you thought Spa was dramatic. We got that down to 67 thousandths of a second, and it was dramatic.
That was dramatic.
Man, as GTOpen managed to find a way to top itself in this thrilling. I mean, we had to wait for it, but gee darn, it was worth the wait. That was something else. I've never seen anything like it, and man, it's why I love racing. It makes you fall in love with the sport all over again. A last lap move like that, simply stunning.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, if you ever do come to the GTOpen paddock, and I highly recommend you do, if you do come across Jerry Canavicio, he has a collection of multicolored trousers that he wears every round, and he hasn't disappointed again with this pair.
They're louder than the V10s in his cars, that's for sure. Of course, yeah, congratulations. 777 as well for winning the Pro-Am. It's Karol Bash, Marcin Jedlinski and Giuseppe Cipriani taking the AM honours there as well.
Fantastic human beings as well. The team have worked so hard to get themselves back to the top, and taking a win is so important at this point, obviously, considering that we're now nearing up to the halfway point in the championship. Paul Ricard comes up next, but certainly Oregon will enjoy that one, and surely we'll look ahead when we go to the south of France at Le Castellet in hope that they will once again achieve some big results. But yeah, we got to give credit to the Pro-Am contingents, because of course Karol Bash has certainly managed to return to the top end in great style as well. The Oregon team, you can imagine the elation after such a tough start, Chris. How much do these moments mean?
Yeah, I mean, it'll mean the world to them. They had such a good race yesterday, finishing third, but this has got to be the start of things coming back to the way we expect them to for the Oregon team. Of course, the reigning teams and drivers, champions from last year as well, but the field's so much more competitive this year, so much more competition, and they've come unstuck a little bit, but starting to find their feet now, particularly on the side of the garage of the number 63.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have the Pro-Am. Contingent making their way out as well. And we saw, of course, Karol Bash taking certainly a very, very good run towards the end, and making their way up through towards the top step of the podium here in the Pro-Am class. And we've got Yusei and Fuminelli lining up in second. Great stint from Fuminelli, recovering after the disappointment from yesterday where Yusei had a tough time, but a great result certainly for those up on the top steps. Dexter Muller, all smiles, and no doubt appreciating the work that Yannick Mettler pulled off as well for SPS Mercedes. But a wonderful race certainly for them, and they will enjoy those results too. Obviously the Pro-Am class, the championship there very tight coming into this one, and certainly to reinvigorate their charge as well. Karol Bash and Marcin Jedlinski, they want to win this title for a second time, and to win it a second time running would be brilliant, but they need to try and bring in the good results now, Chris.
Absolutely, but yeah, I guess for Olymp there, they're proving the change back to the Audi is working very well for them already, and the Shiro pairing, the two Nikos in the Kessel number 38, just missing out on the podium there in the new Ferrari 296, but of course, the 296 represented on the podium by Yusei and Fuminelli as well. So a nice mix there. Yeah,
as the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's exactly the statement here made by Karol Bash and Marcin Jedlinski. Again, offering a wonderful performance here to the GTOpen in Pro-Am. And we'll look forward to seeing how they get on as the season heads to Paul Ricard. Of course, we do have the AM classification as well, and that was a very highly contested fight, but also Giuseppe Cipriani returning to the top step And what a great result for this man, because he is a two-time AM champion here in the GT Open. Took it for the first time back in 2019, following it up with a 2021 success as well, and is now going to look to take the top step here once again, this time though here at Hungaroring, and I'm sure he'd be thrilled with that.
And driving solo as well. It's a great job, doing twice the amount of work as any of the other drivers.
Yeah, we've got certainly Adam Osaka on the second step of the podium, as well as Kiki Saknana as well on the second step of the podium. Giuseppe Cipriani, the sole driver of his car in the Lamborghini, of course, the El Baroni Rampante, and you just see how much that means to him as well. Great to see him back up there after a stellar drive this time around at Hungaroring, and they'll happily accept the trophies as well. Kiki Saknana, always a polarizing figure in the paddock, alongside that of Adam Osaka, of course, the team boss here at Get Speed as well. And we're looking forward to seeing how they continue their rapid rise, of course, following on for the last year's success of Martin Conrad and Alexander Hrakoina for the Landgraf, you know, for their Manfilter Team Landgraf performance. But folks, it's been an absolute pleasure. What a race. Hope you all enjoyed it. We'll see you when we go racing at Paul Ricard. We'll see you then. Take care. Goodbye.